The breaking point. The Nightingale shuddered as it dropped back into normal space, and Dex collapsed. One moment he was standing, gripping the bulkhead with white knuckles, his altered perception showing him 17 dimensions at once. The next, his legs simply stopped working. He went down hard, his shoulder striking the deck plating with a hollow thud that echoed through the narrow corridor. "Dex!" Elara was beside him instantly, her hands on his face, checking his pupils. "Stay with me. Look at me." He tried, but his eyes kept sliding away from her, focusing on things that weren't there. Or rather, things that were there but shouldn't be visible. The quantum probability clouds surrounding every atom, the gravitational distortions from distant stars, the faint echo of the Crucible's presence reaching across space like invisible fingers. "Can't. Turn it off," he managed, his voice rough. "See too much. Everything at once." From deeper in the ship came a sound like wind chimes made of broken glass. Resonance of distant stars was trying to move, trying to help, but she was too depleted. The Lumineth had burned away so much of her essential pattern, saving him during the dimensional crossing that she could barely maintain coherence. "Don't," Elara called back to her. "Save your strength. I've got him." She hauled Dex upright with surprising strength, getting his arm across her shoulders and half carrying him toward the medical cabin. He tried to help, to get his feet under him, but his body felt disconnected from his will. The precursor markers in his DNA were still active, still transforming him, and his nervous system couldn't keep up with the changes. 4 hours, he gasped as Elara lowered him onto the medical bunk. "How long until—" 3 hours, 52 minutes, she said, already pulling out neural stabilizers from the medical kit. "We came out of the crossing exactly where you said we would. 12 hours ahead of the conspiracy. But Dex, if you can't stand, how are we supposed to—" "I'll manage." He forced himself to focus on her face, using it as an anchor point to filter out the overwhelming sensory input. Brown eyes, worry lines at the corners, a small scar above her left eyebrow he'd never noticed before. Human details, real details. Just need time to adjust. Elara pressed a neural stabilizer to his temple, and the relief was immediate. The extra dimensions didn't disappear. He could still perceive them if he focused, but they receded to the background, no longer demanding his constant attention. He took a shaking breath. "Better? Better?" He caught her hand as she reached for a second stabilizer. "Elara, I saw it. During the crossing. Saw the pattern clearly." The Crucible's pattern? The whole pattern. All 17 civilizations. They all made the same mistake. He pulled himself upright, ignoring the protests from his exhausted muscles. They thought they could control it, thought they could use it without being changed by it. But the Crucible doesn't work that way. It's not a tool, it's a mirror. Elara sat down on the edge of the bunk, still holding his hand. "I don't understand." The precursors built it to reflect consciousness back on itself. Amplified. Purified. If you approach it wanting power, it shows you power and destroys you with it. If you approach it wanting to save your civilization, it shows you how to save it by sacrificing everything that makes your civilization worth saving. He met her eyes. But if you approach it wanting to destroy it, it shows you how to destroy it, Elara finished, and destroys you in the process. Maybe, or maybe it just shows you the cost, and you have to choose whether to pay it. The wind chime sound came again from the cockpit, more insistent this time. Elara squeezed Dex's hand once, then stood. "Stay here. Rest. I'll check on resonance." Dex watched her go, then lay back on the bunk, staring at the ceiling. Through the hull, through normal space and the dimensions beyond, he could feel the Crucible waiting. It knew they were coming. Had known since the moment he'd touched its consciousness during the crossing. And it was amused? No, curious. For 3 million years, it had watched civilizations approach with greed, fear, desperation, ambition. But no one had ever approached it the way Dex intended to. No one had ever looked at godhood and said, "No, I'd rather break you." The Crucible found that interesting. Dex closed his eyes, trying to center himself. The neural stabilizer helped, but it was a temporary measure. His precursor markers were still active, still rewriting his neural pathways to accommodate multidimensional perception. In a few hours, the stabilizer would stop working. In a few days, he might not be entirely human anymore. But he only needed a few hours. "Dex," Elara's voice from the cockpit was tight with tension. You need to see this. He forced himself upright and made his way forward, using the bulkheads for support. In the cockpit, Elara was at the navigation console, her face illuminated by the pale blue holographic display. Resonance was a barely coherent mass of flickering light in the pilot's seat, her form unstable and shot through with darkness. What is it? Elara gestured to the display. Long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures near Cathara. Multiple ships, but they're not coming from the conspiracy's direction. Dex leaned over her shoulder, studying the readings. His altered perception let him see patterns in the sensor data that normal eyes would miss. Frequency harmonics, gravitational distortions, quantum probability fluctuations, and what he saw made his blood run cold. Cretharium, he said. At least 20 ships, maybe more. But how? The conspiracy is still 16 hours out. We're 12 hours ahead of them. The Cretharium shouldn't even know about. Elara stopped, understanding flooding her face. The swarm. The deaths at Zeta 7. The Crucible was feeding on them, and they felt it. Felt it and traced it back to its source. Dex straightened, his mind racing. They're not here to claim the Crucible. They're here to destroy whatever's been killing their people. Resonance made a sound like breaking crystal. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, each word costing her. The swarm does not understand. They will try to destroy the Crucible, but they cannot. It exists across too many dimensions. They will only feed it more deaths. How long until they reach the Crucible's location? Elara checked the sensors. At their current speed, 2 hours. Maybe less if they have better navigation data than we do. 2 hours. And the Nightingale was still 3 hours 50 minutes out, even at maximum burn. The math was brutal and simple. The Cretharium would reach the Crucible first, attack it with everything they had, and die by the thousands. Their deaths would feed the Crucible, making it stronger. And when Admiral Chen's conspiracy fleet arrived, "We have to warn them," Elara said. "Even if they don't believe us, even if they're our enemies right now, we have to try." Dex nodded. "Resonance, can you establish a communication channel?" The lumineth flickered, her light dimming further. "I can. Try. But the dead zone distorts signals. They may not receive clearly. Do it." Resonance extended what remained of her essence toward the communication console, and the equipment sparked to life. Static filled the cockpit, thick with interference from the dead zone's dimensional distortions. Then, gradually, a pattern emerged from the chaos. The pheromone-based communication protocols of the Cretharium swarm translated into audible frequencies. "Unknown vessel." The translated voice buzzed and clicked. "You approach sacred death ground. Turn back or be consumed." "This is the Nightingale," Elara said, leaning toward the microphone. "We're here to stop the same threat you're facing. The device on Cathara, the thing that's been killing your people. You can't destroy it with conventional weapons. You'll only make it stronger." Silence. Then, "You speak of the death that feeds, the hunger in the void. We have felt it growing fat on our swarmkin." "Yes," Dex said, pushing closer to the microphone. "But it's not just feeding on Cretharium. It's feeding on everyone. Humans, Thrin, Vexians. Every death in the war makes it stronger. And if you attack it, we know what we face, human." The voice carried an edge of something that might have been contempt, or might have been grief. The translation protocols couldn't quite capture it. "We felt the death that feeds wake 17 times across the ages. 17 times, the hunger consumed civilizations. We remember. We were there." Dex and Elara exchanged glances. "You were there? 3 million years ago?" "The swarm is old, human. Older than your species. Older than most who walk the stars. We remember the builders who ascended. We remember what they left behind, and we remember the first time the death that feeds was activated." Resonance's light pulsed weakly. "The Cretharium were one of the first species, the precursors, encountered, before transcendence. We were young then," the Cretharium voice continued, "barely sentient. The builders who ascended studied us, taught us, warned us of the test they would leave behind, said that every civilization that reached for the stars would face it eventually, would have to choose between transcendence and extinction." "Then you know attacking it won't work," Elara said urgently. "You know it will just feed on your deaths. We know, but we also know that the death that feeds cannot be allowed to wake fully. Better that we die stopping it than let it consume the galaxy. A pause. Why are you here, humans? Why does your ship carry the scent of the builders who ascended? Dex felt the weight of the question. Through his altered perception, he could sense the Critharium ships more clearly now. 23 vessels, each carrying thousands of warrior drones, all willing to die to prevent what they saw as an existential threat. They weren't wrong, but they weren't entirely right either. We're here to destroy it, he said, but not by attacking it, by breaking the pattern, by refusing to feed it. Impossible. The pattern cannot be broken. 17 civilizations have tried. 17 civilizations have failed. Maybe they were trying the wrong way. Dex's hand found Elara's, squeezing gently. Maybe they were all trying to use the Crucible's power against itself. But what if we don't use its power at all? What if we just let it starve? Another pause, longer this time. Then, you carry the builder's mark, human. We can sense it even through the distortion. You are connected to the death that feeds. If you believe you can break the pattern, we will not interfere. But if you fail? If we fail, do what you have to do, Dex said. But give us a chance first. The communication channel crackled with interference. For a moment, Dex thought they'd lost the connection. Then, the swarm remembers the builders who ascended with fondness is not the word, with recognition. They saw us as we were and did not destroy us for being different. If you carry their legacy truly, we will honor it. You have until the death that feeds begins to wake, then we attack. The channel went dead. Elara let out a breath she'd been holding. How long do we have? The Crucible won't fully wake until it has enough death energy, Dex said. Right now, it's feeding on the war, but it's still dormant. When Admiral Chen arrives with his fleet, when they try to activate it for their own purposes, that's when it will wake. 16 hours, Elara said. We have 16 hours to figure out how to destroy something that exists across 17 dimensions and has survived 3 million years. Dex looked at Resonance, barely holding her form together. Looked at Elara, exhausted and terrified but still determined. Looked at his own hands, which could now perceive realities no human was meant to see. Then we'd better get started, he said. The Nightingale accelerated toward Cathara, its modified engines pushing past safe limits. Behind them, the Critharium fleet held position, waiting. Ahead, the cosmic Crucible waited too, patient and ancient, and absolutely certain that the pattern would repeat. Dex intended to prove it wrong. But first, he had to figure out how. He returned to the medical cabin, pulling up every piece of data they had on the Crucible, on precursor technology, on the 17 failed civilizations. Elara joined him after securing resonance in the pilot's seat with energy stabilization fields. They worked in silence for a while, each lost in their own thoughts. There has to be something we're missing, Elara said finally. Some detail in the pattern that explains how to break it. The pattern is the key, Dex said slowly. Every civilization approached the Crucible wanting something. Power, salvation, knowledge. And the Crucible gave them exactly what they wanted, at a price they couldn't pay. So we approach it wanting nothing? No, we approach it wanting to destroy it, and we accept that the price might be everything. Elara was quiet for a long moment. You're talking about sacrifice. I'm talking about the only thing the Crucible hasn't seen in 3 million years, someone willing to pay the price to destroy it, not use it. Dex, I'm not saying I want to die, he said quickly. I'm saying that if breaking the pattern requires sacrifice, I'm willing to make it, because the alternative is billions of deaths, maybe trillions if the conspiracy succeeds. Elara took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. We'll find another way. And if there isn't one, then we face it together. No lone heroes, no noble sacrifices. We do this together, or not at all. Dex wanted to argue, but the look in her eyes stopped him. She'd lost too much already. Her career, her reputation, years of her life to guilt over Korvathi. She wasn't going to lose him too. Together, he agreed. The ship's proximity alarm chimed. They were entering Cathara's orbital space. Through the viewport, they could see the planet below. A dead world, airless and cratered, orbiting a dying red star. And somewhere on its surface, in a chamber carved 3 million years ago, the cosmic Crucible waited. Dex felt it reaching out to him, its consciousness brushing against his. Not threatening, not seductive, just curious. waiting to see what he would do, waiting to see if he could break the pattern. He intended to find out. But as the Nightingale began its descent, as the Cretharium fleet watched from orbit, as Admiral Chen's conspiracy fleet drew inexorably closer, Dex couldn't shake one final thought. What if the pattern couldn't be broken? What if the Crucible had been designed that way deliberately, an eternal test that no one could pass? What if the only way to stop it was to do exactly what it expected and die trying? He pushed the thought away and focused on the task ahead. 3 hours until they reached the Crucible's chamber. 16 hours until the conspiracy arrived. And somewhere in that narrow window, he had to find a way to destroy something that had outlasted civilizations. No pressure.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.